So we're here in D.C. this week, as you know, if you've been following us all week long, and it was so great to also be in town at the same time that my friend, one of the reasons that I'm here is with the Herzog Foundation this week to MC the 4th Annual Christian Education Awards. And along with that comes many of the team that I work with away from this show in that capacity at the Herzog Foundation, the parent company of a news organization that we rely on here at the show a lot called The Lion at readlion.com. And if you don't know it, it's a fantastic news site. I do a show for The Lion as well every week and really enjoy my time. Josh Mann makes The Lion hum. He's the managing editor there and joins us in studio because he's here in D.C. for the same event. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me, Chris.
Yeah, welcome.
Pleasure to be here.
Welcome to the D.C. studios. We were all gathered last night at a great media event that The Lion hosted here in D.C. What I loved was you guys sort of hosted this event ostensibly for people in the space of non-traditional media. True?
That's right. And, you know, there's some great publications here based in D.C. Obviously, Beltway News is huge. The Lion brings a middle America perspective to national news, yes. And our bread and butter is kind of faith, family, education, and culture. We appreciate and work with some of these other news organizations, and we just wanted to say thanks for what you do. We wanted to encourage conservative journalists in the space and other sort of communications adjacent people. And so we had a great event right here behind Congress, and you know, we're really proud in 4 years to have grown a lot, but we really see ourselves as one of many reputable news outlets that are helping average Americans understand what's going on, especially in politics and in D.C. legislation, policy, and why does it matter? Because it really does make a difference to the average family.
Yeah, this is something that is a real problem in news generally. You come from a news background. National politics is one thing, but getting into the granular of specific stories at state and local levels, you guys can still do that, and it matters. I mean, stuff that probably would bore a lot of people or they'd be inclined to gloss over is now not being talked about at all. And schools, public schools, are probably one of the worst for news coverage these days.
That's right. And we saw, you know, post-pandemic or even during the pandemic, this renewed interest in what's happening in the local public school. And yet it's kind of easy to forget about, there's a local level, there are elections, you know, these April elections in a lot of places. People usually don't turn out and vote and get very involved. And then there's a lot of state policy that affects education. Now, of course, here, the Federal Department of Education. So there's so much going on, and it really does impact the average family in a lot of different ways. And so, you know, I would encourage people to pay attention. Our articles, we aim to be conversational, short, to the point, give you the kind of the nuggets that you need, even on some of these kind of meaty policy education issues.
Yeah, I'm sincerely, it is an honor to work alongside you guys and read these stories at readlion.com every day. We talk about them in summary every week on a show called The Lion Week in Review that I enjoy hosting a great deal. But we're in town this week. The parent organization of The Lion is an organization called the Herzog Foundation, which I've talked about from time to time. I was thrilled to be able to talk with Charlie Kirk about the Herzog Foundation, and he cared a lot about the work the Herzog Foundation was doing, which is ostensibly to spread and grow Christian education. A lot of home educators are now involved, and the foundation connects these people all over the country. And here in D.C., for the 4th time, I'm honored to MC the Christian Education Awards. These are people from all over the country that are offering kids alternatives in education. It's just wonderful.
That's right. I mean, these teachers, they work so hard, and they don't always get paid like what they deserve, and especially in Christian education. And so it's a way to honor them, to just let them know we see what you're doing, and to also raise the bar so that other teachers in schools can look and see what does it look like to be an award-winning teacher. And so, you know, and it comes at a time when families are clamoring for more educational options. We see Christian education exploding around the United States. So the Herzog Foundation is suited for such a time as this to help strengthen Christian education, help make schools better, start new schools, and then recognize those great things that are already happening.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I know over the years that you've been covering this at the Lion, readlion.com, where you write a lot about this. It has grown. Home education has grown too, stunningly. I mean, the number of people, I think I read maybe at the Lion, 4 million? Is that the number?
That sounds about right. It's more than doubled since the pandemic. Of course, there was that blip when everything shut down and almost everybody homeschooled, so everybody kind of got a taste of it.
Do you think that shutdown actually led to a lot of parents thinking, why don't I just take this into my own hands? Do you think that's what happened?
Yes, and I think there's a few strands to that. One of those was a growing distrust in institutions that came out of the pandemic when we were told all sorts of things, and then later you find out, wait, that wasn't true. And the shutting down of the education system we've discovered was such a travesty and such a terrible impact on the academic outcomes for these kids, and they will be paying the consequences for years in the future. And so I do think that was a real catalyst to some things that were already sort of bubbling up and some discontent with education.
I'll bring you some pictures, maybe some video on Monday of the event. I always look forward to this every year. You profile a lot of these teachers from around the country before they know in advance they're going to be awarded, and then they're flown into D.C. for this big event. And you profile people from every corner of the country.
That's right. Yeah, and we see, there are so many great stories to be told and countless more. You can read all about that at the Lion. We're covering not only the great things, innovation happening in traditional Christian schools, what most people probably think of, maybe a brick and mortar Christian school, but there's a lot of other kinds of schools bubbling up as well. Different kinds of micro schools, hybrids.
Yes.
Meeting in all sorts of places, urban, suburban, rural.
Education necessarily has to evolve. I think it's pretty clear that even the teachers' unions acknowledge they're fighting a losing battle. Yes, between AI and people's decision to either home educate, Christian schools that are coming online, COVID just blew a hole in the public education boat, and I don't think there's any way to fight against it for them. Is there?
Absolutely. I think there's a great peer pressure now and some increased competition that all boats will rise, in my view, in education. I was at the DOE yesterday meeting with someone, and it was interesting from their perspective. They're working really hard to, from the federal level, make education more efficient, to double down on the programs that they need to be doing to cut waste, and then to move parts in the department to other agencies. And so one of the things I walked away with was just how hard they're working. It's not like they all shut their lights off and have walked out. There's a lot of people still there working hard, to meet the Trump agenda and the executive order about the department. And I think we're seeing that at all levels, even state and local levels, people realizing we got to get this right because parents are leaving. And, I would encourage parents to consider their options, but I think it is going to make public education better as well.
Do you see evidence? I always like to ask this because the lie about Christian education spreading, homeschooling spreading, taxpayers receiving their money back for their own educational needs. The lie is always, you're just eroding public education. Public schools will start folding and collapsing, and needy children won't get educations. Do you see any evidence as a journalist that that's happening?
No evidence that I've seen. And what people need to do is look at some states that have been doing it a while. Florida would be a great example. The number of school choice options there is off the charts. Whether using tax dollars or in some way maybe they're donated funds and scholarship accounts for private education, or just open enrollment, being able to go to a public school that's not in your own neighborhood. Lots of charters in Florida as well. And you have seen for years now success. About half of Florida students are in a school other than their local public school. It might be another public school down the road, it might be a charter, it might be a private school. And they have gone from pretty low in educational rankings to pretty high when you look at the academic outcomes of their students. So it seems to be working there. Fiscally it's working, academically it's working, and so I think that would be one of the best test cases.
I say all the time to young parents who think, well, I just can't financially do it. I can't afford it. There's always kind of been this notion of it's either public school or some hundreds of thousands of dollars private school, and that's just not true. true. There's so much in between.
That's right.
There's so much hybrid opportunity that you can do. It's not one or the other anymore.
That's right. There's so many options. So parents need to look into it. Maybe it's been a while. Maybe they think, well, they have some assumptions about the cost. Look at some of the options around you. Look at what school choice programs are available. What funding might there be? And then you also have to take a hard and long look in the mirror and say, how are we spending our money? And that's another thing. Maybe that means you wait another year for that next vehicle or whatever. But families for decades have been making the sacrifice. And if you poll Christian parents of students in Christian schools, they're going to say it was worth it.
Yes.
They won't regret it.
And it's just staggering when you look at states like Pennsylvania that spend, just having lived there for the time that I have, spending upwards of $20,000, $25,000. New York, probably much more. I mean, when you're talking about $20,000, $30,000 annually, states are spending per student in their state, and then we see the test scores we see. Why in the world wouldn't most voters say, give me half of that and let me apply it my way to the education of my choice? That's
right. And that's one of the key arguments. You look at what are we getting for the dollars we're spending. There's the taxpayer angle on this is huge. And so if you pay taxes, you need to be paying attention to how are we getting as a country what we should be out of our education system. And when you look at how we rank against other nations, it's not great. We've been slipping, and this Department of Education from the federal level wants to address that. Certainly parents are eager to get that right as well.
Josh Mann is the managing editor at readlion.com. This site is a must-stop, in my view. Bookmark it so that you get all the latest news and information that you need. I want to take a break, Josh, and if I can keep you around, I want to talk a little bit about what we have now been covering and talking about, sadly, in the last few weeks, is really sort of a growing assassination culture. What that says about us as a country. I know you cover the culture a lot. I want to talk about the Christian faith. Are they uniquely being targeted now? Much more straight ahead with Josh Mann from Washington, D.C. on The Stigall Show. Talk to me about what we're living through, this era of what seems to be assassination culture on the left, and is it specific, in your view, targeting Christianity?
There's good evidence for that. And what you saw yesterday, for example, with this attack on an ICE facility, is some red-hot rhetoric from the left against immigration enforcement in the months leading up to these things. We saw it a year ago with the attempted assassination of the then presidential candidate, Donald Trump. You see increasing rhetoric and then actual violent action. And I started looking recently into this a little bit. What polls have been done about distrust in institutions and violence? And I found a few shocking things. There's this group called Edelman, who does this trust barometer. They've done it since the early 2000s. And 61% of people globally now have a moderate or high sense of grievance against government, business, media, or NGOs. The shocking thing is hostile activism is increasingly seen as a legitimate tool to drive change. 4 in 10 would approve one or more of the following: attacking people online, intentionally spreading disinformation, committing violence, or damaging public or private property. The demographic most likely to resort to this kind of violence are 18 to 34-year-olds.
Wow.
Does that look familiar? I mean, in the last few weeks we've seen that. I mean, culminating perhaps in the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And so it does seem like there's increasing unrest, but the difference seems to be the willingness to go out and take violent action and commit crimes. And, Erica Kirk made the point at the memorial, and so many others have as well. We haven't seen that from the right nearly as much as from the left. And so it's a real problem.
You have to, I mean, if you're a person of faith, and I am, and I know you are, I take this to be real wickedness rising up and writhing, because simultaneously the good news is faith is on the rise. And we saw it in evidence in the Charlie Kirk Memorial. I mean, young people are also turning to faith. I don't want to get too crazy in my statement here, but it feels like the rise, the ascent of good versus evil in an epic battle right now, like maybe we haven't lived through in a while.
I think you're right, and there certainly is this crisis of meaning. People are looking, when you we talked about the pandemic earlier, this distrust of science and what authorities are telling us, and yet at the same time there's this increasing openness to Christianity and to God and His existence in ways that 20 years ago just wasn't the case. So I think this is a silver lining, and I hope that people who are, without meaning, find that footing, that mooring in their Christian faith.
Josh Mann, he is the managing editor at readlion.com. I hope you check out that publication. It is good reading, written by solid journalists and really good people. I know, because I work with many of them every week.
For full shows, live and on demand, it's Salem News Channel.